What is up, guys? Jimmy here with another Lots of Games video. I'm super excited. Now, in the world of gaming, publishers and developers, there's a lot of competition with video games that are being developed and accessories as well. And oftentimes, gimmicks are introduced to us. Now, the thing I want to stress to you guys is that gimmicks in gaming aren't always necessarily a bad thing. Oftentimes they are a bad thing, or they just something that just wasn't the right fit. They're just maybe trying something new. Sometimes a gimmick in gaming can bring a certain amount of fun or enjoyment with, trying something different. And also down the road, a gimmick might be introduced, and then later on, it might totally open the door for something new and innovative that could bring, totally change things in terms of your enjoyment with a game or an accessory. Today I'm going to be going over with you guys 10 gimmicks in gaming. There's a lot more gimmicks in gaming that I wasn't able to cover. I'm just going to go over 10 with you guys today. Any gimmicks that I missed that you guys think I should cover for the next episode, definitely leave a comment in the section below. And if you guys like this video, definitely hit that thumbs up button so I can know to make more. Now, let's go ahead and get started with the first one I want to go over with you guys. And actually, I have a little bit of history with this one. I'm super excited to talk about this one with you, and that is Tony Hawk the Ride skateboard controller. Now, years ago, back in 2009, I won a pair of tickets to E3. It's true, and actually I won them from Xbox Live's Major Nelson. He was giving away tickets to E3 for the Microsoft press briefing. It was about a 6-hour drive from where I live. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm totally down. I drove down, I won the tickets, and they're like, by the way, you have to be there tomorrow. I drove there, stayed the night, and I went to the conference that very morning. It was just a really quick thing. I'm like, I told my boss, I want to go to this thing. So I went to the press conference, and there were a lot of cool people there. There was Hideo Kojima, there was Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. There was Steven Spielberg. There was a bunch of people. But one of the first presenters was Tony Hawk. And he got up there, and actually this is a video clip that I recorded with my really crappy digital camera. Roll it.
What's up, everybody? It is great to be here today. I'm so excited to get the chance to introduce you to our new game, Tony Hawk Ride, and to unveil the final board design of the revolutionary skateboard controller to you. Here it is, right here. As you can see, it looks similar to...
So when I saw this presentation, I'm like, holy cow, I'm a big fan of the Tony Hawk series, and this sounds amazing, a skateboard controller. I'd always thought about this because I'd played for years the Tony Hawk games, loved them. I'm like, what if they had a controller that was like a skateboard? So my mind was totally spinning like, this could be amazing. Well, it didn't take long, actually, on the E3 show floor where like IGN, GameSpot, other news outlets were trying the skateboard out, and they're like, this thing is really bad. It is not good at all. When it launched, it had a retail price of around $130 US. And it actually, for what it was, considering the low scores it got, it actually sold pretty well. It sold around over 1 million copies, I believe. It was out for the PS3 and Xbox 360. But when I heard about the bad press, I'm like, you know what? I like the Tony Hawk games, but there's no way I'm getting this. I'm definitely not spending over $100 for this. So cut to several months later, I was at a website, a deals website, and it said on how the Tony Hawk Ride game was being totally fire sold and just huge discounts at GameStop. So right then and there, I went to my local GameStop. I grabbed the last Tony Hawk Ride on the shelf. I took it up to the register, and the guy scans it, and he did not say anything for a very long time. And he was not very happy. And I looked at him, and I'm like, is it $5? And he kind of put his head down. He's like, yeah, it's $5. He was mad that I got this and he didn't for $5, but I scored. I was super happy I got this. The actual design of the skateboard is really cool. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work very well, but it's something I'm really glad I was able to pick up for $5. Okay, so the PSV, a lot of you guys know, very successful handheld, sold tens of millions of units, has an amazing library of super, super fun games. Well, there was actually a gimmick that was introduced by Sony at the 2006 E3 conference, I believe. And they're showing off the PS3, they're showing off the PSP, but they introduced a gimmick, and it was really crazy. Like, they're showing this racing game, and they're like, by the way, if you've got a PSP, you're playing your game on the TV with your PS3 or PS2. I'm not sure what racing game it was because right around the time that the PS2 was still out and the PS3 was being introduced. But they show this racing game. Like, by the way, you could have your PSP also, as you're playing the game on your TV, you could turn it around, flip it around, and your PSP could act as your rear view mirror. So you could see what's directly behind you. Now, granted, I will have to say that it was that sounds kind of cool, new innovative way. Like, you have that up by your TV and it's kind of like a second screen where you can kind of see who's trailing you from behind. But it is in fact a gimmick. I'm not sure how many people use this feature. If any of you guys ever use that rear view mirror feature or gimmick in a racing game, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to know how well that actually worked. So when I first got my NES, I was super excited. It came with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. For the longest time, that's all I had. But tens of millions of NES consoles are sold. There was actually a bundle that was sold that included this little guy, Rob the Robot. Now, all I had was the Zapper, but some people got this robot. It sat on your desk or your table, and unfortunately, Nintendo, I'm wondering what kind of vision they had for this thing, because there were like only a couple games for the Rob the Robot. And for something, you've got this robot on your desk or your table, and it's this pivotal part of these games. I guess it just didn't pan out the way Nintendo was hoping for. They didn't develop games for it. They didn't support it. Really interested to know, that you've got this Rob the Robot, and it moves these little discs in certain moments of the game to kind of help you along, and you kind of sync it up with the gameplay of the level or area that you're at. And I'd be really interested to know how many millions of Rob the Robot were sold. Of course, around 60 or so million NES consoles are sold. I'd be interested to know how many millions of Rob the Robot were sold. It's unfortunate that it didn't pan out or work out like Nintendo had wanted, but definitely a very memorable accessory, a very interesting unit, any of you guys that still have that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is also something by Nintendo. This is very interesting. Now, of course, with the NES, I had the Zapper, which it still works like a charm, but with the SNES, they took something to a totally new level with the Super Scope. This bad boy bazooka. Man, I mean, you want to talk about like, oh, cool, the NES Zapper. Well, the Super Scope really was super. This thing it's like this, shoulder mounted. You put this bazooka, hold it, kind of like rest it on your shoulder and kind of lay waste to anything that's on your TV screen. Now, the Super Scope, from my research, it supported around 12 games. And one of the games, actually, I had a lot of experience in the arcades was T2 or Terminator 2 Judgment Day, a light game that I really, really enjoyed. But the most interesting thing I learned about the Super Scope, this massive bazooka, was that there was a game there was an exclusive mode for the Super Scope that you could use the Super Scope for this game. And I was super surprised at what it is. It was actually a racing game. It was the America's Lamborghini or Lamborghini America's Challenge. It's a Lamborghini racing game. It had an exclusive Super Scope mode, which is totally bizarre. I can see like they've got these games, these shooting games, like, oh, what do you got? Well, we've got this Lamborghini racing game, and let's integrate this bazooka into the Lamborghini. I mean, you want to talk about a super stretch or like really expanding your mind or thinking outside the box, but nonetheless, it's in there. And you're watching the gameplay from this Lamborghini racing game. Very interesting. When I saw this bazooka, I originally saw this commercial as a kid for the Super Scope. I'm like, holy cow, I can get this for this thing's bigger than my Super Nintendo, much longer. And but you know what? I never got to play the Super Scope. I'm not sure really if it was a huge hit, if a lot of people bought it, but just a very interesting accessory that was released for a select amount of Super Nintendo games. Okay, for quite a long time during the PS3 and Xbox 360 era, Guitar Hero and Rock Band were super, super important. They sold millions and millions of units. The plastic guitars, of course, Rock Band kind of introduced the full band experience where it had like a drum set. And these things were not cheap. But of course, Guitar Hero first kind of introduced the whole thing where you could have a guitar, you could be a rock star. You've got these plastic guitars. And not only did they sell the game that was bundled with the guitar, a lot of people bought these guitars separately, and they were like $60, $70, $80 or more, depending if you got the wired or wireless one. Because, you know, if you had friends over, and if like one of your friends would play the bass and you would just play the standard electric guitar, it was like not a cheap gimmick, these plastic guitars. And, you know, not a whole lot of people play this. I had fun with Rock Band, I really did. And I played a lot of Guitar Hero too, but you know, really interesting. That's something that took the world by storm. And Activision, classic Activision with Guitar Hero, you know, releasing it year after year after year, drilling it into the ground until everyone's so sick of it. And, you know, not a lot of people play this series, but it surely made a big impact and made a whole lot of money for those that release these types of games. So another one from Nintendo, the Virtual Boy. Now this was something, it looked maybe like it would be portable, like this red virtual reality goggles that also had a stand where you could play the games. Had a really weird controller. I'll include a video in the description below. Metal Jesus Rocks did a video that they went all in and out about the Virtual Boy. A really interesting unit. You know, the Game Boy was a huge hit for Nintendo. They wanted to try something different, something new, and unfortunately it was a big flop. It had these gimmicky black and white visuals or graphics, and what made this thing so, I think, painful for Nintendo was it sold so poorly. It had a limited amount of games, unfortunately, but was really just a really, I think, probably even worse thing for them that kind of added insult to injury was with the poor sales and with the really cold response from critics and gamers around the world was that they actually had demo units of the Virtual Boy at game stores in different locations around the world. And there were actually documented reports of kids who were trying on these goggles and they were passing out. They were getting dizzy and they couldn't take it, and they would pass out and they'd have to get medical attention and be taken to a hospital. So I imagine there were some like potential lawsuits that maybe would have taken place or did take place with the Virtual Boy. So not only do you have a system that is selling poorly, that a lot of people don't like, but then you've got these kids that are getting hurt, and you've got these legal issues that you have to deal with. So unfortunately, this was a gimmick. This was something that Nintendo had to suffer through, but they continued with innovation with handhelds and new consoles, and their perseverance really paid off. Okay, so the next one's kind of an interesting one. Of course, when the Nintendo Wii was a huge success, you know, and the Wiimote actually worked quite well, other organizations wanted to get on the motion control bandwagon as well. And actually, this is another thing that I have a little bit of experience with. When I went to that 2009 E3 press conference for Microsoft, Don Matrick, I believe, he was up there. He was talking about this new technology. And honestly, when he was up there, I thought he was talking about a new Xbox console, but it wasn't. And it ended up being Project Natal, which today is known as the Xbox Kinect. They introduced that Xbox Kinect, back then Project Natal, at E3 of 2009. I was there with about a group of 400 or so people in that room. I saw that, and they promised so many things to gamers and to the public, and it actually paid off quite well. Of course, the Move for the PlayStation 3 sold very well. Lots of different games were sold for it. The Move and the Kinect was the 360 and the PS3 answer to the motion controls on the Wii. They wanted to get on the motion control bandwagon. Now, of course, today, not a lot of people really use motion controls for the you still have motion controls, of course, for the PS4 with the DualShock 4. It still works. Like I mentioned earlier, with gimmicks aren't necessarily bad, as if sometimes they down the road open up new doors. But as far as the Kinect, you know, we've got the introduction of the Xbox One X. There's no Xbox One X consoles that are going to be bundled with the Kinect. So at a time that sold a lot of Xbox 360s, a lot of people were interested in the Kinect, but in time I think that's died down quite a bit in terms of motion controls. Again, it's still used in gaming today, but I don't think it's as focused as much. Like they're like, this is motion controls, this is why you should buy the game. Now they're really focusing, fortunately, on gameplay, and little here and there motion control features depending on the platform that you purchase for. But motion controls at a time were a huge gimmick and it caught a lot of people's attention. So around the same time that motion controls were integrated in a lot of games and were being really focused on, 3D gaming was also something that a lot of people are like, oh man, 3D gaming, this is totally going to change everything. And most people that I've talked to that have a 3DS, they're like, yeah, I've used the 3D feature, but I usually turn it off. There's some people that do use it, but I think people, for the most part, it's not really a big selling feature. And of course, there are TVs that were sold as well, 3D TVs, and they don't really sell 3D TVs anymore. But at a time, they're like, oh man, I'm going to get a PS3 and I'm going to get these games to support 3D gaming. Then I'm going to shell out thousands of dollars for a TV and 3D glasses, because they had for a time people still watch 3D movies. They thought that was going to kind of like usher in a whole new era with gaming. Like 3D gaming is totally going to change things. That died out quite quickly. It definitely didn't catch on like people or developers and publishers were hoping for. And a lot of gamers just weren't sold on it. They're like, you know what? I just want to relax on my couch. I don't want to have glasses on my face, or I don't want to invest thousands of dollars on this special TV with a limited number of 3D games. But guys, let me know your thoughts on 3D gaming if you had the chance to use it, and what you think about it, what the final verdict for you guys were. Okay, so the toys for life, I've got this little Skylander guy. Skylanders, Disney Infinity, Lego Dimension. There's people that still buy the Skylanders and of course Lego Dimensions, and Disney Infinity they don't even really do anymore. You've got of course the Amiibos, but that's kind of something different. But man, for a time, these little guys sold hundreds and hundreds of millions of toys. The Skylanders especially, they sold like crazy. And of course, this is the first year after, I don't know, six or so years since there's not going to be a major Skylanders new release. Of course, there was a Skylanders release for the Switch, but that was a Skylanders game that came out last year. But this is the first year that they're not doing that. We'll have to wait and see in the future if companies want to continue on with the new generation. I could definitely see down the road how like Activision or other companies, maybe even Disney, might want to like, you know what, this is successful, let's try it on the new generation of kids, try these little action figures, toys for life. But to be quite honest, I had quite a lot of fun with, out of all the games that I played, Skylanders are the games that I had the most fun with. The games are fun, but the whole thing with this is a major gimmick, putting the little character on the portal so it can come to life. The great thing about the Switch version is if these little characters, you put it on your Switch, it's stored in the system. You don't have to worry about these toys anymore. Once it's in the system, it's in the system, which I like. Just stick with fun games. I could see how they want to make money hand over fist with selling these little units. I get that. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these games are really, really fun, and some of them are quite really enjoyable co-op experiences. Okay, so the final gimmick I'm going to be going over with you guys is the Nintendo Power Glove. And of course, this is something that was featured in the movie with Fred Savage, The Wizard. I had a friend growing up, Josh. He had a bunch of NES games. His parents would always get him games. And I'll never forget, I went over to his house one day and, I checked out all the new games he got for Christmas. He's like, oh, by the way, I got this as well. And he showed me the Power Glove. And my mind was just blown because I had seen commercials for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Punch Out, to be able to play games with this controller, with this Power Glove. This is amazing. And he was very honest with me. He wasn't like the cool kid who was like, yeah, it's this Power Glove, no one else has it, and it's so much fun. He wasn't being fake about it. He was totally honest. He's like, Jimmy, Power Glove sucks. And I'm like, no, dude, it can't suck. You can put a glove on and you can control the game. This changes everything. And he's like, no. Forget what you saw on TV. This thing does not work. It's garbage. And I was thinking to myself, he just doesn't know how to use it. And I probably sat with that thing for an hour, hour and a half. And my final verdict was like, this stinks. And it did. For any of you guys that ever had the Power Glove and were able ever to get it working, let me know in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to know if you're able to ever get the Power Glove, even like in a small way, working the way you wanted it to. But that sums up, guys, 10 gimmicks in gaming. If there's any other gimmicks you guys want me to cover for the next episode, let me know in the comment section below. And guys, for those of you that are not subscribed to my channel, make sure to subscribe and make sure to enable notifications. I upload often. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.